Mic check, 1, 2.
Mic check 3, 4. I think that might have done it.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Mic check 3, 4. I think that might have done it. Check 3, 4.
All right, good afternoon. This is the on-the-record presentation for Missouri American's General Rate Case, file number WR 2022-0303. I am Ron Pridgeon. I'm the regulatory law judge assigned to preside over this presentation. It's being held March 29th, 2023 in the Governor Office Building in Jefferson City, Missouri. The time is 1 p.m. I would like to get entries of appearance from council, please, beginning with Missouri American Water Company.
Dean Cooper from the law firm at Bryden Swearingen England, PC, appearing on behalf of Missouri American Water Company.
Rachel Niemeyer, appearing on behalf of Missouri American Water Company.
All right, Mr. Cooper and Ms. Niemeyer, thank you. On behalf of the staff of the commission, please.
Karen Bretz for staff of the commission.
Ms. Bretz, thank you. On behalf of the Office of the Public Counsel, please.
Lindsay Van Gerpen on behalf of OPC.
Ms. Van Gerpen, thank you. Consumers Council of Missouri contacted me by phone and will not be appearing today. Any entry on behalf of the Empire District Electric Company? Hearing none. Any entry on behalf of the City of St. Joseph, Missouri?
Thank you, Your Honor. Please let the record reflect the appearance of William D. Steinmeier of William D. Steinmeier, PC, on behalf of the City of St. Joseph.
Mr. Steinmeier, thank you. On behalf of Midwest Energy Consumers Group.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tim Opitz on behalf of MECG.
Mr. Opitz, thank you. On behalf of Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers. Ms. Plesha, thank you. On behalf of the Public Water Supply District Number 2 of Andrew County.
James M. Fisher, Fisher Doherty, PC, and our address is 2081 Honeysuckle Lane, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65109.
Mr. Fisher, thank you. On behalf of the City of Riverside, Missouri.
Joe Bednar with Spencer Fane, address 304 East High Street, Jefferson City, Missouri.
Mr. Bednar, thank you. On behalf of Sunnydale Properties.
Yes, Your Honor, Stephanie Bell of Ellinger Bell, and I have left my information with the court reporter. Thank you.
Ms. Bell, thank you. On behalf of Triumph Foods, LLC.
Yes, this is Joshua Harden on behalf of Triumph Foods LLC with the law firm of Collins Jones, 1010 Foxwood Drive, Raymore, Missouri.
Mr. Harden, thank you. Have I overlooked anyone? All right, hearing nothing, my plan is to call council up for parties one at a time and see if they have any presentation or comments on the stipulation, and then that party would hopefully be ready to answer any bench questions. Even though we have two stipulations, I thought it would be more efficient if parties were able to address both stipulations at once when you come up to the podium, unless that causes the bench or council any sort of heartache. Hearing nothing else from the parties, is there anything else before Missouri American comes and makes its presentation? Right, hearing nothing, Mr. Cooper or Ms. Niemeyer, whenever you're ready. Mr. Cooper, when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Judge. We're very happy to take this opportunity to present the stipulation and agreement that was filed on March the 3rd of 2023 and the stipulation and agreement as to rate design and class cost of service that was filed on March 10th of 2023. These two stipulations and agreements, if approved and ordered by the Commission, would resolve all issues in this case except for the affiliate transactions issue, which was identified as 3A, that was presented to the Commission on March 9th of this month. The two stipulations work in conjunction with one another. In other words, in my view anyway, there are no conflicting provisions between the two. The stipulation agreement that was filed on March the 3rd, I'll refer to as the revenue requirement stipulation. There are certainly some other things in there, but I think that's the easiest way to refer to it. The signatories to that revenue requirement stipulation are Missouri American Water Company, the staff of the Missouri Public Service Commission, the Office of the Public Counsel, the Midwest Energy Consumers Group, the City of St. Joseph, and the Consumers Council of Missouri. The remaining parties do not and have not objected nor requested a hearing. The stipulation agreement as to rate design and class cost of service filed on March 10th, I'll call the rate design stipulation. And the signatories to that rate design stipulation are Missouri American staff, OPC, MECG, MIEC, Public Water Supply District Number 2 of Andrew County, Consumers Council of Missouri, City of St. Joseph, and the City of Riverside. There are 3 parties that did not sign, but again, those parties have not objected nor requested a hearing. Thus, both of the stipulations and agreement may be, by commission rule, treated as unanimous. Administratively, I do want to mention that both stipulations, if approved, contemplate the admission of pre-filed testimony into the record. And I guess while I'm up here, I want to take the opportunity to at least offer the remaining Missouri American testimony, Judge, which are Exhibits 1 through 12 and Exhibits 16 through 44. Exhibits 13 to 15 were previously admitted at our last appearance before you.
All right, I believe Mr. Cooper has offered Exhibits 1 through 12 and 16 through 44. Any objections? Hearing none, Exhibits 1 through 12 and 16 through 44 are admitted into evidence.
So starting with the revenue requirement stipulation, I'm going to kind of go through and give high-level review of the provisions of that stipulation as a starting point. And I think as a factual matter for the commission and for others, I do think from Missouri American's point of view, it's important to note that since the end of the true-up period in Missouri American's last general rate case, which would have been December 31st of 2020, Missouri American has made a little over $700 million in capital investments, net of retirements in the state of Missouri. And certainly for the company, that was a driving force of this rate case. Now, in the revenue requirement stipulation, the parties agreed to an overall annual revenue requirement of $437.5 million. And that splits out between water at approximately $418.3 million and sewer at approximately $19.2 million. That revenue requirement of $437.5 million represents an increase of approximately $95 million over present rate revenues. And of that $95 million, approximately $50.3 million equals the amount that is currently being collected through the WSIRA mechanism, or the Water and Sewer Infrastructure Rate Adjustment. While that's the headline of the revenue requirement stipulation, there are, as I mentioned, several other provisions of importance to various parties in the case. As to the WSIRA, of course, the WSIRA tariff will be reset to 0 as of the effective date of new rates resulting from this proceeding. And for purposes of the WSIRA, the overall pre-tax weighted average cost of capital is agreed to be 8.65%. As to billing determinants, attachments A and B to the revenue requirement stipulation established those for the purposes of creating rates in this case. There's a provision related to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, as there are some adjustments that remain necessary to reflect the impacts of that act. One of those items requires that the TCJA tracker balance as of December 31st of 2022 be applied to the remaining stub period TCJA amortization, and the remainder returned to customers as a one-time customer bill credit within 90 days after the effective date of rates. The existing TCJA tracker will be continued to capture the differences between protected excess ADIT and return to customers as a part of the revenue requirement in this case, and then, to track the differences between the excess ADIT and the actual amortization recorded by the company on a going forward basis. As to main breaks and water loss reports, Missouri American's annual review and reporting regarding those items to include water loss by district is going to be continued. Late payment charges are going to be eliminated for both water and sewer customers. They had previously been 1.5% per month. There are details concerning the pensions and OPEB's treatment that are found in Attachment C to the revenue requirement stipulation. I'd describe this as really not representing any methodology changes, but merely an update of information and some clarification. Depreciation rates are attached as attachments D and E. No changes in those rates from the prior case. In terms of property taxes, there's an amount established for purposes of Section 393-1275. That amounts $34,063,451. And then additionally, the parties have agreed that Missouri American's deferred property tax balance as of December 31st of 2022 will be included in rate base and amortized over 60 months. As to lead service lines, the company continues to replace customer-owned lead service lines. The deferred costs are going to be amortized over 10 years, earn carrying cost at the company's long-term debt rate, and earn a long-term debt return on the unamortized balance in the revenue requirement calculation. And from the company's perspective, this is the same treatment the commission approved in the company's last general rate case. Now, beyond that, the company has agreed to file biannually a lead service line report concerning certain specified items in the stipulation and to meet with parties to discuss aspects of this lead service line program going forward. There is a call center operational audit that has been agreed to, and the details of that are found in Attachment F to the stipulation. There is a tank painting tracker, which will establish a regulatory asset or liability related to tank painting and inspection expense, and a base amount of $1.9 million approximately that's been established in the stipulation related to that tracker. In the company's next rate case, the deferred balance will be amortized over 5 years with no rate-based treatment as to the balance according to the stipulation. There was testimony you probably recall about main extensions and the company's rules in that regard that are found in its tariff. The parties have agreed to tariff changes related to that subject. The changes are going to remove the 120-day time frame, remove the 4 times annual revenue requirement in all instances, and implement a 75-25 sharing mechanism as to total costs statewide. So I guess that's a difference from when you may have last considered those rules, is that going forward, the main extension will not be different for St. Louis County versus the remainder of the state. There is a assistance to troubled systems. Our systems provision, costs related to that are going to be amortized over 60 months. And the company has agreed to participate in both the critical needs program and the rehousing pilot program. The company will provide $250,000 of annual funding to the critical needs program. It will provide $100,000 of annual funding to the rehousing pilot program, and that funding by stipulation would be shared 50-50 between the company and its customers. Moving on to the rate design stipulation. The agreed to customer charges, volumetric rates, and flat rates for both water and sewer customers are reflected in attachments A and B to the rate design stipulation. I think a review of those reveals that there's no change to the existing tariff groups or districts. However, from the company's point of view, I'd point out that meter charges for water are consistent across the state for rate A, rate B, rate J, and private fire charges, regardless of tariff district, and that rate B, which applies to sale for resale customers, is a single tariff statewide rate for both meter charges and volumetric rates. There are 2 additional provisions found in that rate design stipulation, one as to the cost of service calculations, and the company agrees to file in its next general rate case certain cost of service analysis or analyses and to provide benchmarking as described in the stipulation. And then as to certain community data, Missouri American agrees to meet with staff, OPC, and any other interested stakeholders at least 3 times before it files its next general rate case to discuss certain community-specific data as it pertains to Rate A customers in both districts. Missouri American believes that these stipulations and agreements represent just and reasonable resolution of this rate case and requests the Commission issue an order approving these stipulations and agreements and authorizing the company to file tariffs to implement the terms thereof. In addition to Ms. Niemeyer, who entered her appearance in the case today, I also have with me in the room Mr. Brian LeGrand, who is Director of Rates and Regulatory Support for Missouri American. And on the WebEx, we have Mr. Charles Ray, who is the Senior Director of Rates and Regulatory. And as always, if we're unable to answer any questions today, we certainly will seek to obtain that information and get back to you as quickly as possible. That's all I have, Judge.
All right, Mr. Cooper, thank you. Let me see if we have any bench questions. Mr. Chairman.
No questions for the council, but I will have some questions for your witness, Ray. But if you want to proceed with the rest of the other council is totally fine. Basically, a lot of the questions will be similar concept for all the, but you can, if you want me to ask them now, Judge, it's your show.
If you'd like, it's certainly up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like. Or if you'd prefer to hear from council and ask questions later.
Yeah, let's hear from council, and then, because my questions are going to be kind of specific to one topic, so.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Right. Mr. Cooper, thank you. Any presentation on behalf of staff? Ms. Bretz, when you're ready.
Thank you. I would also ask for staff's exhibits to be entered into the record, and I apologize I don't have the numbers, but everything that hasn't been entered so far, and I believe we filed a list too.
You did. Does council want me to go through and get numbers? I can do that for you if you'd like, or I can simply I can simply show later that staff has offered it, the exhibits, and they've been admitted without objection. But first let me ask, does anybody have any objection to staff offering its exhibits? Right, hearing none, staff's exhibits are admitted into evidence. Ms. Bretz, when you're ready.
I'm not going to repeat anything that Mr. Cooper has already stated, but I would like to add that staff believes that the two stipulations, the one filed on March 3rd and then the one filed on March 10th, we believe are a reasonable resolution of this case and provides just and reasonable rates to Missouri American customers. Therefore, staff requests that the Commission issue an order approving these stipulations and order Missouri American to file new tariff sheets reflecting the parties' agreements. And many staff members are available for further questions, either here physically in the room or on the telephone. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bretz, thank you. Any bench questions for now?
Just one. The elimination of the late fee.
Yes.
Who was that? Was that proposed by staff?
I believe that was
OPC?
primarily driven by OPC.
Okay. And then is there any staff witnesses here today?
Yes, I believe that most of our witnesses are available today, either present in the hearing room or on the phone.
Cool. Thank you. That's all I have now.
Right, Commissioner Kolkmeyer, any questions? All right, hearing none.
Sorry, couldn't get off mute. No, Judge, not at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Bretz, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything from Office of Public Counsel, Ms. Van Gerpen?
Just very briefly, Your Honor. I would also ask that OPC's remaining exhibits be entered into the record, and I believe that's exhibits 202 to 219, I believe.
Okay, Ms. Van Gerpen, thank you. Exhibits 202 through 219 have been offered. Any objections? Right, hearing none, exhibits 202 through 219 are admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, as Ms. Brett said, I'm not going to repeat anything that Mr. Cooper said, but OPC is a signatory to both the March 3rd and March 10th stipulations, and we agree with those and would ask the commission to approve both of them.
Thank you. Any questions for public counsel? All right, hearing none, Ms. Van Garpen, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Consumers Council of Missouri is not present today. Any presentation from the Empire District Electric Company? Anything from the City of St. Joseph, Missouri?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anything from Midwest Energy Consumers Group? Mr. Opitz, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, and please the commission. Tim Opitz on behalf of MECG. MECG was a signatory to the two stipulations. I want to reiterate what the council before me have said, that I believe these are reasonable resolution of the issues in this case for all customers between the districts and among the different classes. And then second, I want to take the opportunity to note for the commission my appreciation of its staff and, of course, of the Office of Public Counsel and the other parties, particularly when it comes to settlement. You might not always see it, but there's a lot of work that goes on weekends, late nights, early hours, and I'm appreciative of the efforts of our state employees. So with that, I want to note my appreciation so the commission's aware of it, and I want to ask that you approve these stipulations and agreement.
Mr. Opitz, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Opitz?
I'll run away from any election. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Opitz, thank you. Before I forget, I do have staff's exhibit list, and I may inadvertently go through an exhibit more than once, but I show staff's exhibits as numbers 100 through 140. Does anyone have any objection to those exhibits being admitted into evidence? All right, hearing none, exhibits 100 through 140 are admitted into evidence. Any presentation from MIEC? Ms. Plesher, when you're ready.
Thank you. May it please the commission. I'm just here to say that the MIEC also is very appreciative of the efforts of the parties. We are signatories to the rate design stipulation, and a lot of hard work went into it, and I think a lot of progress was made, especially in terms of setting the stage for future data and future rate cases. And we have our witness, Jessica York, with us today from Brubaker and Associates, and her testimony is exhibits 350, 351, and 352. And she is here today and available for questions. And that's all I have.
All right, Ms. Plesher, thank you. Were you offering those into evidence? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'd like to offer those into evidence.
Thank you. Any objections? All right, exhibits 350, 351, and 352 are admitted. Any questions for MIEC?
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Plesher, thank you. On behalf of the Public Water Supply District Number 2, Andrew County, Mr. Fisher, when you're ready, sir.
Just briefly, Judge, for the commission, the Public Water Supply District Number 2 of Andrew County is a not-for-profit water district that is outside the city of St. Joseph, and it takes all of its water, 12 million gallons, I think, a month from Missouri American. We did support the rate design stipulation. We are served by rate B, which is a single tariff across the state, and we would encourage the commission to adopt the rate design stipulation as a reasonable compromise among all the parties. We didn't have any testimony, so I don't have anything to offer, but I would answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Fisher, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Fisher, thank you. On behalf of the city of Riverside, Missouri, Mr. Bednar, when you're ready, sir.
I don't have anything to add to the other council other than I too am appreciative of all the work of the staff and the company. They're witnesses. The city of Riverside obviously relies on that, but the efforts to reach a compromise are appreciated, and we look forward to continued discussion to move towards a better determination of true residential ratepayers. So that in mind, I have nothing else to say, and I am not running for office either. Thank you. At least no current plans.
And Mr. Bednar, thank you. Anything from Sunnydale Properties?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Bell, thank you. Triumph Foods?
Thank you, Your Honor. Joshua Harden on behalf of Triumph Foods. Nothing really to add here. Triumph Foods is, just real quickly, one of the largest industrial consumers of water from Missouri American Water in the state. It is under a special water contract with MOAM. We do not object to any of the settlement agreements in this case. And with that, we have filed some testimony by Brian Collins on behalf of Triumph, Exhibit 750, Exhibit 751, and Exhibit 752 I'd like to offer into evidence.
Mr. Harden, thank you. Any objections? Okay, Exhibits 750, 751, 752 are admitted into evidence. Mr. Harden, anything further?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Triumph Foods? All right, hearing none, thank you. Let me go back and see if we have any bench questions on the presentations or the stipulations. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Judge, thank you for the opportunity. Where to begin? Is MIUC's witness York available? Could I ask some questions?
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, come on up to the microphone so we can hear your
Perfect.
Hear your answers.
Mr. York, let me ask you, raise your right hand to be sworn, please. Do you swear the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and probably a little unorthodox on a stipulation on the record. But your counsel made a comment that the data and the stuff that was in here is going to set the stage for a future rate case, and I kind of want to follow up on that. Specifically, your testimony regarding the staff's recommendation to get rid of the inclining block rate for Mexico, Missouri. I believe you had testimony that St. Louis County customers have significantly higher water usage than the rest of the state, and what factors did you discover, like why is there a higher significant water usage rate in that area?
In St. Louis County, I believe I was just looking at the average use per customer compared to outside St. Louis County.
Okay. Do you believe that one of the contributing factors could be the higher, like, household income in St. Louis County relative to the rest of the states for higher water usage?
Not necessarily. I mean, I haven't looked into the factors that would drive that specifically. But if there's more residential customers, for example, that happen to have, irrigation systems or something than there are outside the county, for instance, then that could be a factor that's contributing to higher use per customer in St. Louis County.
Okay. So if the commission were to order an inclining block rate for St. Louis County or another service area that met the kind of any criteria, what would MIEC's position be on that?
I would not recommend an inclining block rate for Missouri Americans' service territory, at least not in St. Louis County. That kind of rate structure, I think, would be more suited towards a water system that's facing some kind of capacity constraint, either with supply or infrastructure. And I'm not aware of that being an issue for Missouri American, at least not in St. Louis County.
Okay, so you you would say you'd only look at it if there was a supply or an infrastructure issue.
Right, I mean, if you are going to do that kind of rate structure, it would need to be specifically designed for each individual customer class, and usually that would be geared towards residential or small commercial users that have more seasonal use rather than a large volume users that have more stable usage patterns. And I mean, if you're gonna do that, you really need to understand the demand patterns of the various customer classes, and the price elasticity of demand. If you're recovering a greater proportion of your revenue requirement through a higher priced usage block, and it motivates, customers to curtail usage out of that block, then you might be in a position where you've got more revenue volatility for the utility, and they're not, recovering enough of their fixed costs, which then could maybe end up having, causing rates to need to be reset at a higher level for the lower volume blocks too, which might be harmful for, low income or even fixed income customers.
Okay. All right, so you answered the question that I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
All right, Ms. York, thank you. Any further questions? Well, first, Commissioner Kolkmeyer, any questions for MIEC?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, Commissioner, thank you. Any further questions, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, as the company's witness, Ray, was on the phone?
He is on the
I
WebEx.
am.
Yes.
Yes, I'm on WebEx. Hopefully you can hear me and see me.
I can. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
Mr. Ray, could I ask you to raise your right hand to be sworn, please? Do you swear the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready.
Sure. Thanks again for taking time out of your day to answer some of these questions. So regarding your direct testimony regarding the discontinuing of the inclining block rate pilot program, one of the things you noted was that Mexico's service area has low seasonal variability of water usage, and it's one of the most economically depressed part of the company's territory. The company's affordability analysis found that parts of St. Louis County has household incomes more than 3 times that of Mexico. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So staff states that its rationale for recommending ending the inclining block rate pilot is that Mexico did not have a water shortage or supply issues and does not have significant costs to meet peak day demands. Is the company aware of any service areas in its territory that are having water shortages, supply issues, or that incur significant costs to meet demand days?
I don't think the company is aware of any situations like that, except perhaps in and around the city of Joplin. And I am not an expert specifically on that issue, but I believe that the company has some concerns around supply issues in Joplin. Other than that, I'm not aware of any part of the service territory where there are such concerns.
And is that specifically with the Joplin Reservoir issue? And
I believe that's the case, although in all honesty, there are Missouri American witnesses that are better prepared to discuss this than I am.
Okay, great. So witness York, in her testimony, it said that St. Louis County customers had significantly higher water usage to customers across the rest of the state. I think some of up to 50% higher usage. Do you agree with that testimony?
I agree that residential customers in the St. Louis County territory have somewhat higher usage than customers outside of St. Louis County. For industrial customers, I think that may also be true, but that is due to the nature of, that can be very specific to the nature of the customers we're talking about. But for residential, yes, I would generally agree. I don't know if it's 50% higher, but it is higher.
Okay. Do you believe that one of the contributing factors could be the higher household incomes in St. Louis County relative to the rest of the company's territory as you described in your testimony?
I do actually. We have seen in Missouri and in our Missouri Surface Territory and in other areas that American Water serves, that there is a correlation, a positive correlation between household income and seasonal discretionary use of water, meaning that generally speaking, as household income increases, those homes and families and customers are more likely to use water in the summertime for things like lawn irrigation, swimming pools, things like that, than customers with lower household incomes. So it does not surprise me at all that usage would be higher in St. Louis County than outside of St. Louis County. And it doesn't, and I would certainly point to kind of the economics of the different service territories and the demographics of the customers in those service territories as one reason why that could be the case.
Okay. So in your opinion, could a basic inclining block rate design that was used for Mexico service area, could that be used for St. Louis County or any other service area that met staff's identified criteria?
Potentially it could, but there are a lot of drawbacks to that too. And I think Ms. York touched on some of those. I would say two things. First of all, not every place in St. Louis County has the kind of demographics that we're talking about. You know, there are certainly areas in St. Louis County where household incomes are not very high. And so it's not as if everybody in St. Louis County is the same. And then the other thing I would point out, in addition to what Ms. York talked about, you certainly could end up in situations where you're charging higher rates to, say, customers that are in multifamily buildings that are all master metered, where the usage looks high, but there's really not any seasonal use of water, and the household income of the people in those facilities may not be very high at all. So there certainly can be, in addition to what Ms. York talked about, there certainly can be some unintended consequences if you decide to just apply an inclining block rate structure to, you know, a relatively large service territory without really understanding the demographics of the customers you're talking about.
I think you've answered all the questions that I had.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Coltmeyer, any questions for this witness?
No, thank you, Judge.
Commissioner, thank you. Mr. Rea, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, any further questions?
Staff, Witness Roth, I think, is the one that probably would answer.
All right, Ms. Roth, if you'll please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready.
Do you have any idea what I'm going to ask you about?
I have a guess.
So similar questions I've asked. So does staff agree that, so what are all staff's reasons for getting rid of the declining block rate in Mexico besides the economically depressed parts of the territory?
So my understanding, based on the usage data that we were given, it really didn't play any effect. It increased a little bit, but it was very steady. It never did decrease.
And do you believe that's because of the demographics of where the pilot was done with versus, pilot program or some of the in a different service territory that had different economic factors?
I don't know that I have a good answer for you on that, because this was my first time really looking at inclining block rate in the pilot program. So so I don't have a lot of background knowledge on how it affects the other areas. I don't have a lot of background knowledge on how it would affect other areas based on demographics and stuff.
So do you think a service area that had higher household incomes would be a better candidate for an IBR than Mexico?
I would probably mimic more of what the other two witnesses have already talked about, just from my understanding of everything, but I would also have to go back and talk to other staff members.
So does staff believe that households that have higher income use more or less water than households that have lower income?
I would say higher.
Okay. So in staff's opinion, could a basic IBR rate design plan that was used in Mexico, be tailored to be used in St. Louis County or any other service area that met staff's identified criteria?
From the little discussion that I've had with other staff members, I don't think it would be recommended for St. Louis County. But beyond that, I can't say anymore.
And St. Louis County is on a separate rate than the rest of the state?
Yes.
Okay. So if staff had to choose between an IBR or putting a statewide rate for everybody, where would staff come down?
I would have to go back and talk to other staff members before I could answer that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I didn't think I'd get an answer anyway. All right, cool. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Coltmeyer, any questions?
No, thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, further questions?
Don't want to leave OPC out of the fun.
Dr. Mark, if you want to come forward to be sworn, please, sir. If you'll raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready.
Similar line of questioning. Could an IBR be designed in St. Louis County that targeted more affluent areas that had much more seasonal use? Just talk to me your thoughts on, okay, an IBR could potentially reduce usage, sends a price signal and things of that nature, but yes, it could hurt the multifamily people and things of that nature. So from the Office of Public Counsel's position that represents the ratepayers, where do you guys fall? And what would you think the pros and the cons of looking at IBRs outside of a different location other than Mexico to get different data or apply it to St. Louis County?
Okay, so I'm going to approach this as a two-armed economist on the one hand and the other hand, right? So on the one hand, I would say, yeah, I mean, we can design anything, right? It comes down to, what's the policy objective that we want to accomplish with the rate or the price signals that we're sending. So I've been pretty vocal in past American Water cases that I believe I'm in favor of district-specific pricing, and zonal pricing is probably a better proxy for, the give and take of data and trying to simplify things. But in a future where you wanted to send more distinct price signals to for a given district or zone that was facing large capital investments or had a large number of people move into that area, or that was facing a drought, all of that makes sense. You'd want to apply that sort of price signal in that situation, but not necessarily to somebody that's not experiencing that. Now, the commission's been moving away towards that, more towards single tariff pricing, and now we're at two zones. If you look at the municipal or the utilities that largely have an IBR in place, they're largely municipal utilities, and they're largely out west. So we can draw two conclusions from that. One, a lot of that is situationally driven due to weather, climate, drought conditions. And the other one is the municipal nature of it, which is it's very local, right? Those taxpayers, ratepayers, both, all of that's tied within that given water source and that infrastructure. And again, that's moving away. That's very different than what we're facing here in any of our zones. Even when we talk about St. Louis, I mean, St. Louis is a very big zone. So, perhaps the mean average is higher than the other zone, but within that distribution, you're going to have customers that are all over the place, right? I mean, customers that have pools and irrigation systems and whatnot, and those that don't. And then you might have outliers like a mass metered apartment situation like that. There is the concern, the other issue with the municipal system, I think revenue sufficiency is a factor for municipal systems too, but it's obviously a different factor for an investor-owned utility. So I can understand the utility's apprehension with moving forward to an IBR. All of this then is conditioned on the fact that we're going to actually send these price signals on a consistent basis to customers, right? That they'll know, hey, the more you use, the more you pay. Like, and there's a whole branding message that's necessary with that. There are a number of places that have moved to stuff like water budgets. The idea that, and this is where you've got really, really finite data in a given area where you can look at a household and say, well, the average household of X number of people would consume this much water on average. And then anything above that, they're getting charged in excess of. That could help with the revenue sufficiency. The other thing I'd point out with St. Louis is when we talk about rate A, or in particular, you're saying residential, but you're also throwing in commercial customers in there too. I've actually I don't know the answer to this, but my first reaction to this would be like car washes and stuff like that. I would imagine they'd use a larger pipe to use the water, but if not, I mean, somebody like that would definitely be hurt by an inclining block rate. So again, the message that I guess I would put on is, we can design anything. You can move it forward with that. An inclining block rate would help out lower income customers that use less on average, and that was at least the impetus behind sticking it in Mexico. The differentials were very small, and that's why you really didn't see much of an action one way or the other. I think there is absolute value in inclining block rate if you face a drought-like situation, bar none. I mean, we see that take place out west. You see that in California. And I agree, or, clearly, Joplin has been a source of, much discussion over the last, few years. But generally, when I'm at, NASUCA conferences or NARUC conferences and we talk about, water situations in Missouri, I always counter with, like, we're in the exact opposite situation. We've got flood problems. We have a lot of excess water. So it doesn't make a whole lot of policy sense for our office to push forward with an IBR today, given those constraints.
So let's just have a policy discussion here, because we've been pushing for, some of us have been pushing for a statewide one rate. But I think the impetus behind that, I think, was there were so many troubled water systems out there that this would provide a easier avenue for an organization to buy these smaller systems and fix them, which they would never get fixed on themselves. And so that was kind of the policy driving, I think, that got us to where we are today. But every time we go a step down that road, we get farther away from some type of a localized price signal. And so how do you address those basically competing bookends from a policy standpoint of, so we're going to have people that are using more in things of that nature, and we've gone to this larger rate system across various large geographic areas with various different rate cases, but at what point does that no longer become a good public policy, continuing, if there's not the impetus to, hey, there's a lot of troubled systems out there, and this will make it easier, and this will make it easier. And then is an inclining block rate the antithesis of that? So just talk to me. Talk to me.
My own personal preference, again, was for zonal pricing, and that position came over like about over 4 different cases. In full, disclosure, like, the position that the person that had my job before me was all for single tariff. So, we agree to disagree on things. Even within our own office, we've had discussions on whether it's a give and take. And the give that you get out of single tariff pricing is simplicity. It makes it easier for class cost of service studies. It makes it easier to generalize, and come up with an allocator that you can put across districts. And like you said, it's easier in theory to acquire systems, right? You can throw the money back in, and it's generalized across the population. The disadvantage to that is it mutes price signals. It mutes the actual cost causation factor, right? And my testimony went in at length that there is no connection to the water we're drinking in this building and the water treatment plant in St. Louis County. It's a different water source. And I think something is not just lost in the price signal, but in how, the reality is, it does cost different to live in different places. It just does. I'd always joke on a policy level that if we could get the rural customers to foot the bill for lead lines in the inner cities and the inner city customers to foot the bill for, internet service, then we'd have a happy medium. But it does cost different, and the idea behind rate of return regulation, one of the principles really is that cost causation to get that. I think zonal pricing gets you to that happy medium, but even then it's imperfect, right? I can say this with confidence right now, like we aren't facing a drought issue. You do raise, there's a question of, well, how big do you want these differentials? Like how much conserved water is enough? Is it just for the sake of conserving? We can sit here and say, well, there's probably cost savings associated with chemicals, and maybe if we're deferring a future plant treatment, but again, I don't think that's an issue right now for any of our districts, or at least not in St. Louis County. So could the situation absolutely arise? Definitely. And it's something worth having in the back of your pocket. But if, my advice, if you're interested in going down this route or for future commissioners to consider this issue, there is, there's bill impact analysis that we can, conduct. American Water, and I'm not going to speak for Mr. Ray, he's clearly expert and has the information there, but the company has come a long way in collecting data and being able to, process it. And that's one of the things, one of the conditions within the stipulation is actually looking at, I think Mr. Bednar called the true residential rate, and to look at that. There are definitely things that we can do to look at it, but probably direction would be.
So, and that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation, is because I have a concern that we're getting rid of the Mexico pilot program, and it will easily be spun that, IBRs don't work. And because if I didn't like them, that's the first thing I'd point to is, well, they tried one back here and it didn't work. And I agree with you that American Water's come a long way with their data. And so, they're having the ability to get more granular data and things with technology that is there. So it was a concern of setting up for future rate cases that if the public policy driver for how we got to where we are today is no longer relevant, that I don't want the public policy to be that IBRs don't work, and there isn't a case for them, especially now that the company can have much better data and we can do a little bit more diving into to different areas. And so that's really kind of what I wanted just to flush out here, because there wasn't
I will say, like, I did an IBR presentation to the commission about a decade ago on the electric side, and there wasn't much information on water at that time, but there has been since. I mean, like, that's one way of looking at this. The dialogue over this issue, I think, is really going to play out in western states. You're going to see, you know, more of the localized impact if there are huge fluctuations. I mean, I was in Arizona last year. I mean, that place is just expanding exponentially, and I don't know where they're going to get the water from if it's not replenished. So I think you will see that play out, and that will be part, at least, in the background, if that's any consolation.
Didn't have
Yeah.
wasn't trying to win or lose on an art, but just wanted
Yeah.
to have that conversation because that was something with the stipulation.
I think it's a legitimate fear, though, right? Because, you could look back and say, well, we tried this and we failed, right?
That's how I would, and with stipulations, they're great. We
Yeah.
love stipulations when everyone can get into the room, but at times it does take away an opportunity for us to flush out some policy discussions and get things talked about, and didn't want that opportunity to go by here, because I don't think I'll be here for the next rate case. Of course, I've been saying that for 4 years now, but yeah, that was, because easily, I mean, we could have a single rate for the whole state in the next go round, and
Right.
or maybe you stay there for a while and maybe reverse course after. I don't know how it plays out, but just didn't want to be on the record that IBRs don't work in Missouri, because I think they still should definitely be part of the conversation, even in the situation we're in with just two rates for the state.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Coltmeyer, any questions for public counsel?
Not for public counsel, other than a comment to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, you've had some very good discussion here, so thank you for bringing up the conversation. Thank you, Judge.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Dr. Mark, thank you. Mr. Chairman, any further questions?
Does anybody else want to weigh in on the IBR discussion? No, don't jump at once.
I would, Your Honor. Just real quick, to Joe Bednar from City of Riverside. I want to echo what Dr. Mark said, and I left out OPC and Dr. Mark earlier in my thanks for the participation. I think the discussion, even in the settlement discussions about these issues, were important and represented real dialogue that you're looking for. But I think the key that he touched upon, real residential usage, when you look at rate A and the number of different users within that, I think that's kind of the first step to get to the next step. Otherwise, it can be kind of a blind throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping for the result. But I think identifying the true residential ratepayer, the low-income user, the fixed-income user, and look in those respects and see what it really is, could be helpful in identifying and protecting everybody so that they have just and reasonable rates. That's all I had to add, but appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
Mr. Bednar, thank you. Mr. Chairman, any further questions?
I just want to thank everyone's indulgences today. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Coltmeyer, any further questions or comments?
No, thank you, Judge.
All right, Commissioner, thank you. Anything further from council or from the bench before we conclude? All right, hearing nothing, that will conclude the on-the-record presentation and file number WR 2022-0303. Thank you very much. We are off the record.